Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to introduce our topic, why this news case is a must-learn for students, faculty, and industry stakeholders. In this presentation, we'll explore the critical lessons behind over 6,000 Indian startups shutting down, published on December 3, 2025. We'll look at the key reasons behind these failures, covering strategy, sustainability, market corrections, economic pressures, and regulatory learnings. Our goal is to understand these failures so future entrepreneurs and managers can build more resilient and profitable businesses in India's rapidly evolving entrepreneurial landscape. Let's get started. Maharashtra has recorded the highest number of startup closures, which really highlights some of the ecosystem challenges we're facing. Out of a total of 19,792 recognized startups across India, about 32% have closed down. That's nearly one-third of recognized startups, which is quite significant. And when we look at the data up to October 31, 2025, over 6,385 startups have shut their doors. Again, almost 1 out of every 3 startups that started up has failed. This isn't just a number, it's a reflection of the tough reality in our startup ecosystem. The parliamentary data revealing these mass closures underscores the urgency to understand what's really happening. So, what's the story behind these numbers? Why are so many startups struggling or failing? That's what we'll explore next, as we uncover the stark reality of what's been happening in our landscape. Now, let's take a closer look at some key numbers that paint the picture of India's startup ecosystem. Under Section 80 IAC, many startups continue to operate and grow successfully, thanks to various benefits, including tax incentives. In fact, over 4,100 startups have received these tax benefits, which clearly shows the support system in place. However, it's also important to acknowledge the challenges. Nearly one-third of startups, around 6,385, have shut down. This highlights the tough environment they face, including issues like funding winter, which has impacted many ventures. Despite these hurdles, the total number of startups registered under government schemes has reached around 19,000 as of October 2025. This demonstrates a vibrant and dynamic ecosystem that continues to attract entrepreneurs and innovation. Overall, these numbers emphasize both the resilience and the ongoing challenges within India's startup landscape. And they set the stage for understanding how this ecosystem is evolving and what support mechanisms are crucial for its future growth. Let's take a closer look at some of the core reasons behind the challenges Indian startups are facing today. First, regulatory challenges play a significant role. Issues like GST complexity, compliance burdens, and unclear shutdown processes can create major hurdles for startups trying to operate smoothly and plan for the future. Then, we see problems related to financial management, excessive spending, weak unit economics, and the absence of a clear path to profitability. These factors often lead to cash burn and mismanagement, which can be disastrous for a company's sustainability. Additionally, solutions that don't address real customer problems at scale tend to fail. This poor product-market fit results in low demand and limited growth potential. Post-2022, we also observe a shift in investor sentiment. Following the overfunding boom, investors became much more risk-averse, making it harder for startups to secure new funding. This funding drought further hampers growth and innovation. Finally, broader market conditions matter too. Reduced consumer spending and demand across sectors have contributed to a market slowdown, making it even more challenging for startups to thrive. All these factors combined reveal why so many Indian startups are struggling today. It's a complex mix of regulatory, financial, product, investor, and market challenges that are impacting their success. As we look at this stage of the funding environment, we see that early-stage startups have been hit the hardest. The availability of funding at the Series A and B levels has essentially dried up, which has created significant challenges for young companies trying to scale. This slowdown in growth capital has meant that startups can no longer rely on continuous funding rounds to fuel their expansion. Instead, the focus has shifted toward building sustainable business models. Investors are no longer tolerant of ongoing losses. They want to see a clear path to profitability. This has led to a bigger emphasis on creating viable, long-term plans rather than just chasing rapid growth. Risk aversion has become a key theme. Investors are now demanding detailed profitability roadmaps, not just growth metrics. They want to understand how a startup plans to turn a profit, which naturally makes them more cautious. Adding to this, global monetary tightening has made capital more expensive and harder to access. Higher interest rates mean that funding is not only scarcer, but also costlier, which impacts not just startups but the entire investment landscape. All of these factors, higher interest rates, increased due diligence, and a more cautious investment climate, have contributed to what we often call the funding winter. Post-2022, this has been a reality check for many players, forcing startups and investors alike to adapt to a new, more disciplined funding environment. When it comes to the key takeaways on strategy, it's simple. Strategy always trumps hype. Sustainable businesses understand that prioritizing profitability is essential, rather than chasing after flashy press releases or buzz. Unfortunately, many startups fall into traps like founder conflicts, weak boards, and a lack of financial discipline, which all contribute to poor governance. Stubbornness can be a real problem. Ignoring market feedback or signals that suggest a need to pivot can be fatal. If you're unable to adapt quickly, you're likely to fall behind. Speaking of financial health, if your cost per acquisition exceeds the lifetime customer value, that's a clear warning sign that your unit economics are weak. Many companies rely on unsustainable pricing strategies just to get customers in the door, without having a solid retention plan in place. Excessive discounting might boost short-term sales, but it's not a sustainable approach. Instead of focusing on genuine customer satisfaction, some founders chase headlines about fundraising or valuation, missing the core value they should be delivering. All of these issues, strategic mistakes, self-inflicted wounds, are common fatal errors. They highlight the importance of making smart, disciplined decisions rather than falling into these pitfalls. Ultimately, the biggest lesson is that a solid, well-thought-out strategy will always outperform hype and superficial wins. Let's take a closer look at the various customer acquisition battles that businesses face today. One major challenge is price wars, where companies continuously lower prices to outbid each other, which can erode profit margins. Alongside this, market saturation makes it harder to find new customers because the market is already crowded with competitors. This leads to intense competition, forcing businesses to innovate and differentiate themselves constantly. On top of these market pressures, there are legal dispute costs that can arise from intellectual property issues or contractual disagreements, which can be both time-consuming and expensive. Fundraising regulations also add another layer of complexity, making it tougher for companies to secure necessary capital quickly and efficiently. Similarly, GST compliance burdens companies with administrative overhead, diverting resources from core growth activities. Regulatory complexity across different regions further complicates operations, especially for businesses expanding internationally. Marketing inefficiencies can result in wasted budget and missed opportunities to connect with the right audiences. Infrastructure costs, such as upgrading technology or expanding facilities, are significant investments that impact cash flow. Talent acquisition expenses are also rising, as skilled professionals are in high demand and competition for talent intensifies. All these factors contribute to rising operational costs, which can squeeze margins and limit growth potential. Additionally, reduced export opportunities due to trade restrictions or geopolitical issues further restrict revenue streams. Supply chain disruptions, whether from geopolitical tensions or natural disasters, can cause delays and increase costs. Inflation pressure impacts both input costs and consumer purchasing power, making pricing strategies more challenging. At the macro level, there's a global slowdown that affects demand across markets. Coupled with economic and regulatory pressures, these factors create a complex environment where businesses must constantly adapt to survive and thrive. Understanding these customer acquisition battles helps us see the broader context in which companies are competing today, and underscores the importance of strategic resilience in navigating this challenging landscape. Let's talk about how correction phases actually strengthen the startup ecosystem. When tough times hit, weaker businesses tend to shut down, which might seem harsh, but it's actually a healthy process. This leads to consolidation, where only the strongest businesses survive and thrive. As a result, we see better quality startups emerging from these challenging periods. Now, while tax deductions and government benefits can provide some relief, they aren't enough on their own. Long-term survival really depends on the core strength of the business, being structurally sound, having a solid business model, and a clear path to profitability. This ties into the idea that government incentives alone can't save weak or unviable businesses. They might get a temporary boost, but if the fundamentals aren't there, those businesses won't last. And speaking of fundamentals, startups that find a deep product-market fit tend to survive even during funding winters. They can withstand the downturns because their core offering truly resonates with customers. On the other hand, startups that lack product-market fit often collapse despite raising high amounts of funding. They just don't have that real demand. So, in essence, product-market fit is more critical than just chasing funding. It's also important to recognize some common self-inflicted wounds that can kill startups. Poor cash flow management, ignoring profitability, founder disagreements, and neglecting customer retention are all pitfalls that can doom even promising ventures. And all of these insights really come back to the core lessons from critical MBA case studies. They teach us that resilience, strong fundamentals, and understanding the true needs of the market are key to building a sustainable business. This cycle of challenges and corrections ultimately makes the ecosystem stronger and more capable of supporting successful startups in the long run. Now, moving on to the current priorities in the ecosystem, investors and founders are really shifting their focus. They're placing greater importance on unit economics, customer retention, and the path to profitability, rather than just chasing vanity metrics. This is a significant change because it emphasizes sustainable growth and real value creation over flashy numbers that don't tell the whole story. At the same time, there's a strong push to focus on sustainability. We've learned valuable lessons from past failures, and these lessons are helping us build better board structures, enforce stricter financial discipline, and foster greater accountability among founders. All of these improvements are strengthening the entire ecosystem. This refocus is also reflected in better governance frameworks. Market corrections are naturally filtering out unsustainable models, which leaves us with resilient, profitable businesses that are genuinely solving real problems. It's about quality over quantity, building a healthier, more sustainable environment for innovation. And the silver lining, a stronger ecosystem is emerging from these challenges. This shift is setting the stage for more durable, impactful companies that are better equipped for long-term success. So, even though the landscape has been tough, it's ultimately leading us to a more robust and resilient future. As we look to the future, it's clear that these failures are actually shaping a new generation of resilient, profitable, and world-class Indian startups. The key is to focus on sustainable unit economics, ensuring that each product or service can stand on its own financially. Staying adaptable and ready to pivot is crucial. Markets evolve quickly, and flexibility can be the difference between success and stagnation. Maintaining financial discipline from day one helps build a strong foundation, preventing reckless spending and encouraging smart growth. Equally important is prioritizing product-market fit above all else, making sure what you're offering truly meets market needs. And of course, building for profitability, not just growth, ensures long-term sustainability. The 6,385 closures we've seen aren't signs of defeat. Rather, they are part of a natural evolution in a maturing market. India's startup ecosystem is evolving, becoming more sophisticated and resilient. Failures shouldn't be viewed as setbacks. They are invaluable lessons that prepare us for future success. These experiences are shaping a more robust and mature startup environment, paving the way for even greater achievements ahead.